talk about Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry and Meghan have been brutally roasted on Saturday Night Live by Colin Jost during his Weekend Update sketch. Let's take a look.
These two.
What began as a comedy skit quickly turned into a public roast on national television. Saturday Night Live's Colin Jost ripped into Prince Harry with precise sarcasm, branding him the most useless spare in royal history. The crowd burst into laughter, but underneath the humor was a sharp sting, reality disguised as jokes. For Harry, it wasn't just mockery, it was a televised blow to whatever remained of his reputation. Known for his cutting wit, Jost targeted the Duke of Sussex in a sketch that spread like wildfire online.
Harry and Meghan, it appears they have become a joke absolutely everywhere. How's the joke being received?
Oh, I mean, everybody thought that was pretty funny, except there's no way Donald Trump would agree to it, right? He would be like, it's the one.
And unlike the tightly managed interviews Harry usually gives, where every detail is polished and the story is carefully shaped, this time, there was no cover from flattering lighting, emotional edits, or victim-driven narratives. Jost's monologue didn't just tease. It revealed Prince Harry's shocking descent from royalty, portraying him as someone who swapped heritage for headlines, honor for attention, and nobility for a streaming contract. The phrase "the heir and the spare" suddenly carried a whole new weight.
Severe questions around, no, nobody wants these two. If you read the comment section, everybody in the States is like, please take them back to the UK. I don't think that they have remotely any clue as to how unpopular they truly have become.
The phrase that's been used for ages to define the roles of royal siblings has never sounded more like an insult than when Colin Jost took the spotlight and labeled Prince Harry the worst spare in royal history. That one line triggered laughter, applause, and intense chatter. Beneath the comedy was a harsh truth. Harry, once praised for his charm and bravery, has seemingly unraveled into a mere reflection of who he used to be, shifting from a respected royal to a headline-chasing memoirist. His path hasn't felt like growth. It's looked more like a downward spiral. Jost's punchline hit hard not because it was cruel, but because to many, it rang painfully accurate. He followed up with a brutal joke that captured the very irony people have been pointing out for years.
Growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's...
How do you beg for privacy, then turn around and drop a Netflix series, a Spotify podcast, a memoir, and a full-blown documentary all about how much you hate the spotlight? The contradiction isn't subtle, it's blinding. And finally, mainstream satire is saying what everyone's been thinking. Harry and Meghan built their entire public image on demanding space, while simultaneously cashing in on every piece of personal drama. This isn't an accident, it's their business strategy. And Joe tore it apart, hilariously but brutally, calling it exactly what it is, hypocrisy for profit. At one point, she quipped, he went from a palace to a podcast, earning roaring laughter, but the point hit harder than the punchline. Harry, born into centuries of royal legacy, has traded it all for streaming content, reality-style docuseries, and brand endorsements.
See King Charles do this because he's not confrontational. I don't think that he likes the fact that he's been accused of racism towards his grandchildren in Omid Scobie's book. So I think he's going to continue to tiptoe around these two, but Prince William.
Once celebrated for his military service and humanitarian work, Harry is now better known for his streaming stats than his sense of purpose. This fall from grace isn't just dramatic, it's intentional. Joe didn't paint Harry as a failure, but as someone who willingly traded royalty for relevance. She crowned him the chief executive of oversharing, a title that skewered not just the sheer volume of personal details he spilled, but how trivial they've become, from frostbitten body parts to tiara squabbles. His memoir Spare and everything since have turned him into more of a spectacle than a statesman. Once seen as the brave young prince walking behind his mother's casket, Harry is now viewed as a man who can't stop airing royal laundry on every platform that'll pay. Joe nailed it with a single line, "This isn't healing, it's therapy-themed branding." But perhaps her sharpest jab came when she dubbed him the Netflix prince who lost his crown to an algorithm.
Now, the Sussexes have copped it from comedian Colin Jost on Saturday Night Live. He's joked that one of the conditions of Trump's new trade deal with the UK is that Harry and Meghan have to go back. It's pretty cruel, Kinsey.
Look, there's no way President Trump would accept that deal.
The joke underscored a brutal reality. Harry's identity now seems more connected to streaming deals and viral clips than to any real sense of purpose or service. His shift from duty-bound royal to full-time content creator hasn't elevated him, it's distorted him. Once shaped by royal discipline and tradition, he now chases digital relevance on platforms where success is measured in clicks, not character. And when the algorithm stops favoring him, what will be left? Colin Jost twisted the knife with a cold punchline. He used to fly attack helicopters in Afghanistan. Now he attacks his brother on Audible. The audience roared, but beneath the laughter was a hard truth. Harry's transformation from frontline soldier to self-help soundbite is widely seen as a sad demotion. Once respected for his bravery and humility in service, he's now perceived as a man who swapped honor for headlines.
For Prince Harry, because his wife is a lot to deal with. Trump says he hates the way that Harry dealt with the late Queen, and judging by his friendliness towards King Charles, he won't appreciate the way Harry continues to run his mouth against the monarchy today. And say what you want about the Trump dynasty, but they are incredibly close and loyal to.
He's now better known for complaining about his brother getting the bigger bedroom at Balmoral than for any meaningful achievement. Joe's savage comparison reminded viewers just how far Harry has fallen. From combat veteran to content punchline, from admiration to mockery. Then came the direct hit on Spare, Harry's infamous autobiography. Joe cracked, the only thing more revealing than that book was Harry's frostbitten tarja. A line that hit hard because once again, the exaggeration felt uncomfortably close to reality. The memoir wasn't applauded for depth or wisdom, it was ridiculed for its pettiness. Joe didn't frame it as a dignified reflection from a misunderstood royal, but as a whiny diary filled with complaints so trivial they'd be more at home on Reddit. And perhaps the most damning takeaway? Harry's emotional outbursts don't read like healing. They come off like a desperate campaign to stay relevant. The SNL sketch didn't just mock him, it hinted at something more troubling, that Prince Harry isn't just drifting, he's being directed.
Trump dynasty, but they are incredibly close and loyal to one another.
Now, more troubles for poor Meghan. She's been threatened with a $10 million lawsuit after a woman suffered catastrophic burns, allegedly from the Duchess's do-it-yourself.
Harry used to follow palace protocol. Now he follows Meghan's production calendar. The crowd erupted, but the laughter carried a sting. The sense that Harry no longer runs his own life. Once seen as independent and strong-willed, he now comes across as scripted. Less a man with a mission, more a supporting act in Montecito's content machine. Joe didn't have to spell it out. The audience already knew. Harry traded a crown for clout. Joe even joked that Harry had become a punchline in Taylor Tom Ford, perfectly capturing his strange new identity. He dresses like royalty, lives like a celebrity, but talks like someone who's lost the plot. The sketch nailed how Harry now pops up in glossy, choreographed photo shoots, speaking about trauma, but somehow always on brand and on camera.
Based in Hollywood here, told me that Netflix could have and probably should have put a disclaimer on the screen to save their own skin, saying, consult a doctor or seek medical advice if you're looking for something specific. Now, the Meghan fan, this is crazy, said she's willing to resolve the matter without litigation.
All while living in a $14 million mansion. The irony couldn't be more obvious. Here's a prince who claims to be silenced, yet saturates every platform from streaming giants to book tours. Joe's punchline cut deep. For many, Harry's activism feels as hollow as it is overexposed. The segment wrapped with a brutal closer. Harry left the crown, but kept the costume, just without the dignity. It was comedic poetry. Once cloaked in real royal authority, Harry now performs royalty for film crews and podcast mics. He still wears the look, mimics the tone, and drops the occasional "my wife and I," but the substance is missing. That quiet, steady sense of duty, the soul of royalty, is gone. All that's left is a costume without content.
Like a little bit of a shakedown, but if her demands are not met, she intends to launch a lawsuit seeking settlement damages of a minimum of $75,000 to cover medical expenses.
This is going to be fascinating, because if there is some sort of a settlement, I expect to see a lot of other people come.
A title without substance. That was the core of Joe's final punch, delivered with pinpoint accuracy. It landed with a laugh, but lingered with an uncomfortable truth that couldn't be ignored. What began as a comedy sketch ended as a cultural eulogy for a prince who once held the world's respect and traded it for headlines, hashtags, and Netflix deals. In the closing minute, Joe's ruthless humor didn't just ridicule Harry. It captured the public's growing exhaustion with his very public unraveling. Colin Jost's takedown wasn't just a comedy moment. It was a mirror held up to a global figure who, over the years, has become increasingly hard to defend.
If it's not genuine. Before you go, Kinsey, actor Tom Cruise has shut down questions about Donald Trump's movie tariffs at a recent press event in Seoul for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. He told attendees that
Harry has spent years trying to reinvent himself outside palace walls. But as Saturday Night Live made brutally clear to millions, the public isn't buying the polished, pity-fueled rebrand anymore. Joe's sketch didn't just poke fun. It spotlighted how far Harry has drifted from the man he once was. This was the prince who walked behind Diana's casket with quiet strength, who inspired wounded soldiers through the Invictus Games. Now, he's the guy mocked on late-night TV for oversharing Frostbite and Family Feuds. His credibility isn't being torn down by tabloids. It's unraveling by his own hand, and by how the public perceives him. And that's why the satire cuts so deep. Joe didn't invent a character. He held up a mirror to what Harry has become, a directionless ex-royal chasing attention, not purpose. The laughter in that studio wasn't just at Harry, it was at the tragedy of wasted potential. This SNL moment wasn't a cheap jab, it was a cultural verdict. Harry has reached a breaking point, and so have we. This isn't just comedy anymore, it's a call for accountability. It's about substance over spectacle. And it's time we, as an audience, stop rewarding victimhood dressed as virtue. If Harry wants to be taken seriously again, he must stop mining the past for pity and start building a future worth respecting. And for the media, stop amplifying staged sob stories and demand real leadership. As for Harry, if you're listening, enough with the microphones, the memoirs, and the melodrama. You once had the world's respect. You can earn it back, but it'll take humility, not headlines. Silence, not as surrender, but as maturity. Let this SNL roast be more than just a punchline. Let it be the pivot. Because if the world only sees you as a joke, then your legacy won't be royal, it'll be forgotten.